Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Thursday, October 3rd. I'm Elizabeth Arcalian. A new lawsuit is challenging how the city of Bakersfield manages the flow of the Kern River, which runs through the city.
The Kern River has been making water lawyers rich since 1850, and I do not see that changing anytime soon.
Coming up, hear more about the complicated challenges affecting the river's water flows in just a few minutes. But first, today's headlines. The race for California's 22nd district, which cuts through Kern, Tulare, and Kings counties, is among the closest in the nation, and the winner could determine which party controls the House next year. Voters had a chance to hear from the candidates during the district's first and only debate on Wednesday night. KVPR's Joshua Yeager shares the highlights.
Republican incumbent David Valadao and Democrat Rudy Salas agreed on most issues, like ballooning housing costs, gas prices, and homelessness. But there were some differences. Salas attacked Valadao on reproductive rights for his previous support of a federal 15-week abortion ban with no exceptions.
This decision should be left between a woman, her doctor, and within her own faith. I don't think politicians like David Valadao or anybody else should be interjecting themselves to make those decisions.
Valadao criticized Salas' tenure in the state legislature, where Democrats have long held a supermajority.
We served the exact same amount of time in elected office, but he's been in the state where the problems are being created, and we're in the federal level trying to prevent Sacramento's problems from flowing across the nation.
Recent polls show the race is neck and neck, with Salas up less than a percentage point. For KVPR News, I'm Joshua Yeager in Bakersfield.
A Montana man has been convicted of threatening to assault former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Prosecutors said the 45-year-old man made over 100 phone calls to McCarthy's office in February of last year. He was upset that the government would not shoot down a Chinese spy balloon floating over his state. A jury rejected the man's claim that his actions were free speech. Threats against U.S. lawmakers have risen sharply in recent years. A former candidate for the Selma City Council was arraigned in Fresno County Court Wednesday on charges of perjury and allegedly filing a false candidacy. Prosecutors say this summer the woman Jovita Camacho filed to run for a city council seat in which she did not live. In court, she pleaded not guilty. If convicted, Camacho faces 4 years in prison. A plane crash yesterday afternoon in Bakersfield left one man severely injured. The small aircraft crashed in North Bakersfield near Olive Drive and Highway 99. The Kern County Sheriff's Office says only one man was inside the plane, and he was taken to a nearby hospital for major injuries. The Federal Aviation Administration has taken over the investigation.
Getting rid of an old car can be a pain, especially if it's in disrepair. But fear not, the KVPR Vehicle Donation Program is here to help. We'll tow away that old vehicle and use the proceeds to support the news you rely on. And we accept all kinds of vehicles, including motorcycles, boats, and RVs. Learn more at kvpr.org/cars.
And now to our main story. 3,000 dead fish. That's what the California Department of Fish and Wildlife is investigating along a 1.5-mile span of the Kern River in Bakersfield. The mass die-off occurred in early September, around the same time the city of Bakersfield decreased water flows for infrastructure maintenance. Now, how water flows are managed in the Kern River is the subject of a new lawsuit. Lois Henry is the editor of SJV Water, a news website dedicated to covering water issues across the San Joaquin Valley. She joins me now to discuss more about the river's changing conditions and the forces that are challenging its flows.
The river was flowing because of the 2023 epic water year. And then this last water year was a pretty good water year. So the river was flowing for close to 2 years and had, developed quite a nice, healthy fish population. The situation that happened is that the city was putting water down the river at this point voluntarily. This was not basically Mother Nature that was continuing the flows this summer. It was the city, and their water right ran out as of September 1st. And they couldn't put any more water down the river themselves, and the agricultural districts that also have water rights have other uses for their water, and they declined to put water down the river. And so it dried up for basically the entire portion through Bakersfield.
So, would there have been a way to slow the flow of the river without killing off so many fish? Like for a river to just dry up so abruptly, how did they do that?
Welcome to the Kern River. The Kern River is also very, very highly plumbed, as we like to say. That means you can put water in it. It can be dry, say upstream, like for 4 or 5 miles, and then downstream of whatever point you're standing at, it can be flush with water because there's a canal called the Cross Valley Canal, which brings water from the aqueduct all the way into East Bakersfield, where it goes into a water treatment plant and then is dispersed for drinking water. That Cross Valley Canal carries water east, it carries water west, and it has multiple turnouts into the river. So at any one time, you can be walking along the bike path and be dry, dry, dry. Oh, wet river, then dry, 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 wet river.
Okay, so you explained that the city of Bakersfield's water rights essentially expired in September. How do water rights play into what has essentially become a conflict between different groups with this river going dry?
Well, the attorneys for the plaintiffs will say that water rights
who are public interest groups that are suing the city over the dry river, right?
Right, public interest groups. There's a couple of local public interest groups. One is called Bring Back the Kern. The other is the Kern River Parkway Foundation. And then there's the Sierra Club is involved, a Center for Biological Diversity is involved, and the Audubon Society is involved. So there's big money also backing this, not just local public interest groups. So those plaintiffs are saying all of these water rights, and there are many going back 150 years, those water rights, according to these attorneys, mean nothing. I mean, they mean something, but what these attorneys are arguing is that the public trust doctrine trumps all of that. And the public trust doctrine is part of the California Constitution, and it says that the state of California owns all natural resources in trust for the public. That includes timber, it includes mineral rights, it includes water, and that the state is actually in charge of that natural resource and must permit it to the highest beneficial public use. So that's what they say. Look, this is the underlying right, and we're suing on this right, saying that the public trust has not been adhered to in this river.
So essentially, it's been a violation of public trust to stop the water and kill the fish.
What their argument is that under the public trust doctrine, the river has to be looked at as first a public resource, and that the environment gets a share of that. The agricultural water districts will say that's a bunch of hooey. I might be paraphrasing.
Okay, so this portion of the Kern that's gone dry, the city said in response to criticism for that their water rights had run out and that it wasn't their fault, essentially. Is that right?
Yes, at the city council meeting, they really chastised the volunteers and members of this group, Bring Back the Kern, who were basically just there to say, look, what's happening? Why are you doing this? Because the city initially sent out press releases saying they were drying up the river in order to do maintenance on some weirs, and didn't explain
what is a
the
weir
rights.
Exactly.
A weir is just think of it like a little sort of a mini dam. It just stops the water, it backs it up. It's usually right next to canals that go off of a river. So it stops and it controls the water, backs it up so you can move it into other canals.
Okay, so they're stopping the river for maintenance, essentially.
That's what their press release says. So people were really upset by that. Like, well, wait a minute, you can do maintenance on a river without stopping a river. I mean, look at the Sacramento, look at the American River. These are not rivers that you stop, you just redirect the water. And so there was a lot of anger over that. And then, people showed up at the city hall meeting to say, something better can be done for this environmental situation. And that's when the city sort of said, well, it's our water right.
Can you explain why this portion of the Kern River going dry matters?
Well, it goes through the heart of town, highly accessible to anyone and everyone. It also recharges the groundwater, so it has a huge benefit for not just the quantity of our groundwater, but the quality as well, because, when groundwater gets low, that's when, bad constituents can kind of manifest and make your water quality much lower. So I think that people have a huge vested interest in it. And I cannot put enough emphasis on how amazing this town is and how different it is with the river flowing through it, even on a low level. I'm not talking about a raging river, I'm talking about an ankle deep river, and the benefit to the psyche of the community.
So just to sort of recap, this CSU Bakersfield professor and some students noticed the dead fish, the dry river. Local advocates took it to the city council, said, what's going on? The council kind of pointed to the water districts and said, take it up with them. A lawsuit has transpired, is in progress with these environmental groups suing the city of Bakersfield. So what is next?
Well, like I always like to say, the Kern River has been making water lawyers rich since 1850, and I do not see that changing anytime soon. I foresee more lawsuits. I foresee more motions, more appeals, more opposition, and more finger pointing, and more frustration on the part of just average citizens who are like, we have a river bed. Why can't we have river water in it?
That was my conversation with Lois Henry. She's the editor of the news website SJV Water, which covers water issues across the San Joaquin Valley. And that does it for today. Thank you for listening. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.